We begin today in the Mishnah at Daf Chavav Amud Aleph, right at the beginning of the Amud, continuing here with another Mishnah that will tell us the halachas of Kinyanim. Zok Teilige Mishnah, Nechasim sheyesh lahem achrayus, properties that serve as a responsibility, which means that when you lend someone money, if he has properties, karka, so you know that that's where you can collect your loan from, because it's not going anywhere. So people rely on that. That's why karka in Lashon of Mishnah and Gemara sometimes is called yesh lahem achrayus. So niknin, how do you acquire karka?
Automatically?
What do you mean automatically?
Yeah,
that's the nature. That's the nature of karka. It's available always. So niknin, the kinyan of these nechasim is bekesef, ubishtar, ubechazaka. Either by giving kesef, or by the meicher writing a shtar that this karka is sold to you, or with chazaka. And chazaka, Rashi here describes, means either you dig in it a little bit, or you walk around by its fence. That's what Rashi says. Even though Taisus disagrees with this. Or you lock it, or you make a breach in a certain place to open up. All these things is an expression of ownership and yokaina. All other movable items that do not serve as a responsibility for anything because you can move it from one place to another. The kinyan of these things is with Mashiach, when you pull it to you. Now, so the Rishonim actually say, we had before, B'negei to Behemoth, you could be kind of with Hagbah, or maybe even with Mesireh, and over here the Mishnah is saying Mashiach. Why is the Mishnah saying Dafke Mashiach? Mashiach is the more common kinyan, or the kinyan that applies in more places. But over here the Mishnah says just Mashiach. These movable items that don't serve a responsibility, niknin, they could be acquired im nechasim sheyesh lahem achrayus, along with a piece of karka that you're acquiring bekesef b'shtar b'chazaka. When you make the kinyan on the karka with one of the three ways that we said works, automatically the kinyan on the metaltalin will come along. And this is what's called Kinyan Agav. As we'll see, the Gemara will discuss Barichas this Kinyan. It's Niknet Agav along with the Karka. Another halacha regarding Karka and Metaltalin, V'zoikekin es anachasin sheyesh lahem achrayus. Now, these Metaltalin, which are the nechasim that do not serve as a responsibility, they will bring along with it also to make a shvuah for nechasim sheyesh lahem achrayus, for karkois l'shavalen, regarding making a shvuah. So Rashi brings the halacha that we learned a few times, that's brought in Masechta Shvuas, that you learn from a pasuk that the halacha of making a shvuah, to swear about something in a din Torah, let's say moide b'miktsas, is not on karka. It has to be only on a movable item. That's what's learned from the lashon of the pasuk. Now, but if in a argument of a din Torah, there's both, they're arguing about kalim, about something, a movable thing, and also about karkois, since you're making a shvuah on the kalim, it drags along with it also that you could now make the shvuah on the karkois as well. Right, so over here it works the opposite. The metaltalin drag along the karkois. By the kinyan of the karka brings along with it also a kinyan on the metaltalin. Zok the Gemara bekesef minalon. What's the source for the kinyan of kesef? Oma Chizkiah. So Chizkiah says, Oma Kra. The pasuk says, Sodeis bakesef yikna, that you acquire a property with kesef. But ve'eme adik shtar. Maybe when it says in that pasuk, there's a continuation there that it includes shtar as well, the chsiv, because the pasuk there right afterwards says v'kosav v'sefer v'chosam, and this is written in a document and it's signed. So maybe you have to have both. Says the Gemara, iksiv yiknu lebesayif k'dekamrit. If the term yiknu that you acquire would say at the end, after it says v'kosav v'sefer, then you would be right. But hash d'chsiv yiknu meikare, since it says yiknu right after kesef, so therefore I say that kesef kani, the kesef itself is the kinyan, and shtar is rai balmuhu. When it says afterwards in the pasuk shtar, it's saying that then they wrote a shtar as a proof for the kinyan that was already done from before. There's a famous machlokes b'negei the Kinyan Kesef between the Taz and the Sma. The Pashtus, the Kinyan of Kesef, sounds like that it's basically a mode of payment. You're paying for what you're buying, and that payment creates the kinyan. But the Bach and the Taz say has nothing to do with the concept of payment. It's a kinyan of kesef by giving kesef, and it has nothing to do with the value of the property that you're selling. You're kind of with kesef. So I said the Torah is saying it's a mode of expressing a certain ownership by giving kesef, or it creates a kinyan. But the Sma says, no, it's not so. When it comes to Kinyan Kesef, it is a mode of payment. And the Torah is saying this payment creates the Kinyan. And even if you're just giving a Shava Pruta for a massive property that's worth much more, it's the beginning of the payment. The reason the Kinyan works is because it is a haschala of payment. Okay, that's machlekes, and this is also related to the Kinyan of Kidushin by Isha. That's one of the places that they prove to say that the Kinyan of Kesef is not a mode of payment, because by Isha it's not shaykh to say that it's an Inyan of a payment for her value by giving her a Shava Pruta B'chlal. So over there you can see that the Kinyan of Kesef is just a Kinyan, just the giving of the money without the value that's involved in it. So similar would be over here also regarding the Kinyan of Akarka. Okay, let's continue. Omar Rav. Rav says about this halach here that Kesef itself is kaineh. The fact that Kesef itself will create a Kinyan, that's only in a place where it wasn't customary to write a Shtar. In a place where people write a Shtar, so in such a place, you're not going to be kaineh until you write a Shtar as well. Not because Kesef itself can't be kaineh, but because that's the custom that people are used to, the fact that when you're selling this property, so you have a deed, you have an actual document that gives you the ownership, so he's not soymech das, the lekeach, is not relying on this Kinyan, that it's his until he has a Shtar in his hands. That's the minig. Yeah, once you have that deed in your hands, now it's yours. So therefore, his das is to be kaineh only after he has that Shtar. Now, v'i parish. If even in such a place where the minig is that the Kinyan only takes effect after the Shtar, but if he spells out himself clearly in the sale that if I want, I can be kaineh with Kesef alone, or if I want, I can be kaineh only when I get the Shtar, so then whatever he's going to specify, so this is a Tanai in regarding a money matter, you can specify whatever you want. And here the Gemara says how this could play out. The buyer could do this to his benefit. Kiha de Rav Idi bar Ravin, like Rav Idi bar Ravin would do when he bought a piece of property. Kizavenara, when he bought a piece of property, Omar, he would say, if I so desire, so then bekaspikni. Let the Kinyan take effect just with the money that I'm giving. But if I desire, then b'shtarikni. The Kinyan should only take effect once the Moicha gives me the Shtar. So why was he saying these two things? Because if I want that the Kinyan should be dafka with Kesef, so if the seller will want to retract from the sale, he won't be able to retract because I already gave him Kesef and the Kinyan took effect. But if I want, then the Kinyan should only take effect when I receive the Shtar from the seller, so that I should have the upper hand, that until the Moiched does not give me the Shtar, I still have time to retract from the sale. So he gave himself the upper hand, and this is in a Kinyan, you can make whatever condition you want. He can be mefarish this. Ubishtar, then the Mishnah says, you kind of with Shtar, says the Gemara, Minola. What's the source for the Kinyan of Shtar? If you'll say the sources from the pasuk mentioned before, Mishum Dechsiv, V'Kosuv, V'Sefer, V'Chosim, that you write it in a document and it's signed, and that's V'Hoid Eidim, and there's Eidim in it. But V'Amret, didn't we say before, Shtar Ai Valmuhu? That pasuk is not speaking about a Shtar for a Kinyan. It said before the Kinyan is with Kesef. This Shtar is just as a proof later that it's yours. Elo says the Gemara, Mehocha. The proof is from a different pasuk, which is also in Yirmiyah, but it's earlier on there in that kapitel, where it says, Ve'ekach ha-sefer ha-mikneh. And I take the sefer ha-mikneh, this document, to acquire. So over here I see that you can be kind with the sefer with the shtar alone. But Shmuel says in this, Lo yishanu, this that we learn out here from the pasuk, that shtar is kind alone, this is ela b'shtar matone. This is only for a shtar when you're getting a gift. When it comes to a sale, you're not going to be kaineh until the buyer, until he pays, gives money, you're not going to be kaineh. And again, it's based on a similar point to what the Gemara says before. It's not that shtar doesn't have a koyach to be kaineh on its own. It does. But elamai, by a sale, because the moicher is expecting to get money in return for this, and he's not goymedas, he's not going to agree to sell just with the shtar alone until he gets his money's worth. So therefore, the shtar itself is not going to be kaineh. Moshe Rav Amnuna asks on this. There's a brayso that says, "B'shtar ketzad." How you kind of with shtar? Kosav loyal and yor, or lacheres, on a paper or on an earthenware. Afal pi sheim bem shava pruta. There's no value of a shava pruta to this. Sadi mechuralach. Buyer right, a seller that is right. My property is sold to you. Sadi nesunalach. My property is given to you as a gift. So here, this brisa spells out both options, whether as a mecher, as a sale, or as a gift. So the brisa says that is a mechura nesuna. So it's whether it's a sale or it's a gift. So you clearly see over here, the brisa is saying that it's just shtar. Doesn't mention a word about the fact that it has to be kesef. And the brisa says both, mecher and nesina. Answers the Gemara, who meisav la, who mefarik la. Rav Amnuna asked this question and he answered as well, that this brisa is a different case. B'moicher sadeyu mipnei rasa. If the seller is selling his property because it's a bad quality property and he wants to get rid of it, so even though, he wants to get paid, but he wants to make sure that the buyer is not going to detract from the sale, so he's interested in the sale taking effect right away as soon as he gives him the shtar. Now that's an exception. So in other words, the point is, in essence, shtar is a kinyan, but in a usual case, Shmuel is saying the seller wants to get the money, and he's not soymich das to sell until he gets the money. But in a situation where the person wants to get rid of his karka, so then he's soymich das right away with the shtar. Ravashi learns the pshat and the brisa differently. That really, even though the brisa spells out two different options, whether it was a sale or it was a matana, but really the brisa is all talking about one case. B'matana bikash litnaloi. He's giving this karka here as a gift. Now, so why is the brisa saying that the meicher, or really the one that's giving a gift, is writing it to the shtar a language of a sale as well? It's only being written into the shtar, this expression, to give a stronger koyach to the person that's receiving this karka as a gift. Because when you receive it as a sale, when you buy it, so then what happens if someone comes and confiscates this karka from the buyer, saying that the person that gave it to you or sold it to you owed money to me, and now he confiscates it from him? So if it's just a gift, so that's your loss. He gave you a gift, and now someone else collected it for a loan, so it's your loss. But if it's a sale, if he writes into the shtar, sadi mechurelach, so then if a Baal Chayv comes and collects from it, he can return to the one that gave it to him as a gift to be reimbursed, to get the value of this karka. So he's giving him, I'm giving you a full gift, that no matter what, you're going to get the value of this karka. But it's really all talking about a matana. But if it was a mecher, then the halacha would be like Shmuel said, that the shtar would not be kind by itself. It's not kind until you give the money as well.
What's the bottom line? Because the shtar is not kind.
Well, be'emes shtar is kind by itself, as long as it's a situation where you know that the meicher is geimer das with the shtar alone. The shtar be'emes is kind. Elamai, in many situations, maybe even in most situations, the shtar will not be kind on its own because you know that the meicher is waiting for the money, and until then he's not ready to let the sale go through. So in most cases, maybe shtar alone will not be kind.
So when the shtar is kind, that means the kesef is all.
The kesef is just a mode of payment. Yeah, you owe the money. Exactly, you owe the money. It's just as a payment, but it's not shaykh to the kinyan itself.
Which is nicknamed
B'mishicha, yeah.
You also
Well, yeah, if that's if the agreement is you have to pay, so then you're going to have to pay later. But the tashlumin has nothing to do with the kinyan. It's a separate thing, though.
Yeah, but it's not
saying by the mishicha. Okay, I don't think the Gemara says that by mishicha. Could be mishicha is different. Well, b'chlal, but okay, let's see soon. The Gemara is going to discuss a little bit mishicha. Let's see. Or b'chazake. So what's the halacha? Where's the source of chazake? Uminalon, or machiskiye, or makra, or shvu ba'arechem. Asher tefastem, that you should sit in your cities that you have grabbed hold of. What does this mean? Bameh tefastem, b'yeshiva, by the fact that they are shvu, that they're sitting there in the cities. That refers to chazaka. When you settle and you live there, that's the chazaka that you're kind with. So you inherit the land and you settle in it. How's the Yerusha applied? In other words, the actual Yerusha, the Kinyan of the Yerusha, be yeshiva, through settling in the land. So the settling refers to the chazaka when you live there in a way that expresses ownership. If I remember correctly, I think the Rishonim actually say b'feidish that the same thing that Shmuel said before regarding shtar, that in a case where the meicher is expecting the money, you're not kind of with the shtar alone unless you pay. The same thing is regarding chazaka, that you're not kind of with the chazaka alone until you give the kesef. Same svara. Sagt die Gemara weiter, So those items, that movable items that do not serve as any responsibility for any loan, so that you acquire with Mashiach. Alone, what's the source for this? So the lashon of the pasuk is you sell something to your friend, or you sell something from the hand, or you buy something from the hands of your friend. Davar hanikne miyad liyad. So the language of the pasuk is not only describing that you're buying something, but it's describing how the sale takes effect. When you take it, when you pull it from your hand, from your friend to your hand, so that's how you that's the kinyan of Mashiach, right? Says the Gemara, Rabbi Yochanan Dama. Now this is a machlokes that comes up many places between Rabbi Yochanan and Reish Lakish. Reish Lakish holds Mashiach is the kinyan min atayra for metaltalin. Kesef, according to Reish Lakish, is not a kinyan min atayra for metaltalin. Just paying money, that's not the kinyan. But Rabbi Yochanan Dama, however, Rabbi Yochanan holds dvar atayra mois kindness. That min atayra, the kesef, when you give money, that's the kinyan for metaltalin. And Rashi, this is machlokes Rishonim, what the source for that is. Rashi brings the sources from what it says by hektish. V'nasna kesef v'kamle. When you redeem hektish, you redeem it with money. So you see that money creates a change of the ownership from hektish to you. So it's the same with any acquisition, it's through money, for metaltalin. So my ikele meima. How are we going to learn pshat over here in the Mishnah? The Mishnah doesn't mention anything about kesef when it comes to metaltalin. It only says Mashiach. Why? Says the Gemara, Tane takanta de Rabbana katani. The Mishnah is only mentioning the kinyan of Mashiach for metaltalin, which is a takana mid Rabbanan. What's the reason for this takana mid Rabbanan? Because if you're going to say, Rabbi Yochanan says, if you're going to say that the kinyan of metaltalin is just with kesef alone, so what happens if a buyer pays for metaltalin, but he never took it? He never took it into his property. It's sitting there still by the Meich's storehouse. Then a fire breaks out. And so the Meichel is not going to make the extra effort to go and save these items, chitim, let's say, these wheat that was sold already to the lekeach, and he says, well, it's his loss. He left it here. He should have picked it up, and it's going to get burnt, and then the lekeach is going to come, he's going to say, sorry, your stuff got burnt. But if the sale does not take effect until he takes it out, so then if a fire breaks out, then the Meichel is going to make sure not to let it get burnt. It's going to be his loss. So therefore, Chachamim were misaken that the kinyan should be Mashiach. The chasim she'elam achrayis. So the next Mishnah, the halacha in the Mishnah was regarding the kinyan of Agav. When you acquire a karka, along with it, the kinyan could take effect to be kind of metaltalin as well. What's the source for this? That their father gave them gifts, and the gifts that was given to them, and they were kind of it im ore mitzuris bi Yehuda, together with the properties and the cities of Yehuda. So we see that along with the properties comes the gifts of the matanis and yekaina together. You don't have to make a separate kinyan for the metaltalin. The shaila was asked about this kinyan of Agav. Be'inon siburim, is it necessary that the metaltalin should be piled up on the actual piece of land that you're acquiring, or it's not necessarily necessary to be piled up on the land? The metaltalin can be anywhere, in any place in the world, and the kinyan of the karka will take effect for the metaltalin wherever it is. Rav Yosef, Toshima, I'll bring you a raya. It says over here in a braisa, or maybe in a Mishnah. I think it's a Mishnah. Rav Akiva says, Karka kolshehu chayeves bepeyo bikurim. Even a tiny piece of land, mamish, whatever, kolshehu. So whatever grows there, the mitzvah of peyeh applies to leave over for the poor people, and the same, the mitzvah of bikurim applies as well. And also, the lichter v'lev pruzbol, you can, if you own this piece of karka, then you can write a pruzbol. The halacha of pruzbol, which we learned in Masechta Gittin, is when you have a loan that goes through the year of Shemitah, so Shemitah absolves all loans. So Chachamim were masakin that you can write a pruzbol, which means you give over all the loans to the Bezdin, and then, because it's in the hands of Bezdin, so you can still collect your loans. But this takan of Chachamim is only if the borrower owns a piece of karka. Then the concept of pruzbol applies. Rashi's pshat for this is, why dafka if you own a piece of karka? Because Chachamim are only making a takana for something which is common, for a normal loan. When a person takes out a loan, especially, usually we're talking here about a large loan, it's only if he owns some piece of karka. If he doesn't have any piece of karka, then it's going to be hard to get a loan like this. So therefore, the Chachamim's takana was for a milveh hametzuya. That's Rashi's pshat. Other pshatim in Rishonim, but that's Rashi's pshat. And then the Braisa says, which is what we're speaking about here, and also to acquire the movable items together with this karka. If you have a mashu of karka that you're buying, you can acquire along with it any other movable items. If you're going to say that in this Kinyan of Agav, so it has to be piled up on the actual karka itself. So kol shulamai chazi, if you have a tiny piece of karka, what could you pile up on it to be kind of together with this karka? Tergim Rav Shmuel bar Bisne, Kamed Rav Yosef. Yosef explained in front of Rav Yosef. Well, Kagoy Shenotzba Machat. He's stuck in a little needle on this piece of karka, and you're being kind of that little needle together with the karka. So maybe it does have to be in the karka. Amalei Rav Yosef. Rav Yosef said to Rav Shmuel bar Bisne when he said this answer, Kavastan. You caused me pain by giving such an answer. It's like others say kavasta means it's like when you steal, or it says he didn't accept this answer. Ichbul Tana lashminun machat. The Tana is telling me the halacha that applies regarding acquiring a little needle. It's not a significant thing at all. Amar Ravashi, so Ravashi says about this, no, it is a good answer. Man leimalon, who tells us the loitola ba maginta de shavi al fizuzi, that he didn't hang on this little needle that he put there some kind of precious maginta gem that's worth thousands of dollars, thousands of zuzim. So therefore, it's a Kinyan of Agav for a very significant piece of metaltalin that you could be kind of with it, and has to be on that piece of mashu karka itself. Tashama, the Gemara tries to bring another ayah. Omer Abalaza, Maisa b'Medoni Echad. There was a story with a person from the place Modin. Shaya b'Yerushalayim. So he was in Yerushalayim. Shahoyla metaltalin harbe, and he owned a lot of different movable items. Ubikesh litim b'Matani, he wanted to give them as a gift, but he didn't own any piece of karka. So how is he going to give it as a gift? Amrulai, so they said to him, Ein loy takana, the only way you can give it as a gift to the people you want to give it to, al gabe karka. Give it as a gift along with a kinyan of a piece of karka. Now, the Gemara will later explain, seemingly he can give it with a kinyan of chalipin. There are other modes of kinyanim that you could do for the kinyan of metaltalin. We have the Mishnah, right? Meshiche or chalipin, which always works. So the Gemara will soon address that. Ma asa. So what did he do since he wanted to give the kinyan of these metaltalin? Holach v'lokach beis sela samach l'Yerushalayim. He went and bought a beis sela, which at this point it sounds like he bought a little piece of property that's the size of a sela, the size of a little coin. So he bought this little piece of property right near Yerushalayim, and then he says, "Va'ama tzfayni ze leploini." The north part of this little property that I bought, I'm giving as a gift to so and so. And the imoy along with it, meyitzayim meyachavius, 100 sheep and 100 barrels. Umeis, and then he passed away. The kaimes dvara, and Chachamim said that what he said takes effect, and the kinyan over here of Agav, along with this karka, takes effect. Now, if you say that the metaltalin has to be piled up in the land itself, beisela l'may chazi. What could you put on a beis sela? Little tiny piece of land. What could you pile up over here? These hundreds of sheep and barrels. Says the Gemara, no, we misunderstood what the case here is. Mi savr is beis sela mamish. Do you think the translation here is he had a little piece of karka that's the size of a coin? That's not what it means. My sela, the nofish tuve. It was a very large place, a very large karka that he bought. My karile sela. The reason it's referred to as a sela, the kashik sela, because it was a bad quality of property. It was like a hard piece of land, a rocky place that's hard like a sela. And that's where he made the Kinyan of Agav, but it was large enough to put everything on it. Tashama, let's try to bring a raya from another case. Similar story. There was a story with an individual that was sick, and he's in Yerushalayim, and he felt like he was going to pass away, and he wanted to give matanis to different people. Now the Gemara clarifies, this version of the story follows the opinion of Rabbi Eliezer. What's unique about Rabbi Eliezer's opinion? So we learned before, it comes to Ashchiv Mira, when he says he wants to give a gift to someone, he doesn't have to make an actual kinyan, because the Chachamim were misakin that whatever he says, it's as if it's already written and given over. However, Rabbi Eliezer disagreed with that idea. Rabbi Eliezer held Ashchiv Mira has to make a proper kinyan just like anybody else. So therefore, according to him, the version of the story, as we'll see, he was looking to make a kinyan to give away metaltalin, and he was sick. That's according to Rabbi Eliezer, that you have to make a kinyan. But va'amrila, others have the version of the story, bari haya, this individual was a regular healthy person, and kirabanan, it follows the opinion of the Rabbanan that say that only a regular healthy person has to make a kinyan if he wants to give a gift. Okay, so the story with this person was again, he had a lot of different movable items. He wants to give it as a gift. So they said to him, the only way you can give it as a gift is along with a piece of land. And again, the Gemara right away soon will discuss why not chalipin or so on. So ma also, what did he do? He went and bought a quarter of a kav, a little piece of land near Yerushalayim. And then Va'amar, he said, Tefach al tefach leplaini. A tiny area in this piece of land that I bought. A tefach al tefach goes to so and so. Ve'imoy, along with it, meyetzayin or meyachavias. 100 sheep and 100 barrels. Here, so this Brisa spells out pretty clearly that it was just a tefach al tefach. And then he passed away. And Chachamim fulfilled what he said. So we see here, if you're going to say that the metaltalin acquired along with the property have to be piled up in the property, this tiny area that he's giving, a tefach al tefach, he can't have with it, on it the tzayin and the chavias that he was giving. Answers the Gemara, no, there's no raya from this brisa because the case here is l'demei. He wasn't giving actual, as a gift, actual sheep and barrels. He was saying money in the value of 100 sheep and the value of 100 barrels, that money is going to be piled up on the karka itself, on that tefach al tefach on the karka. And I'll prove to you that this is what the Brisa is speaking about. And here the Gemara comes to the question that I mentioned before, why is this the only way to give it? If we're talking about sheep and barrels, so nikninanele why would you not make the kinyan of chalipin? Why did they tell him the only way you can give it is together with a piece of karka? Let him give it with chalipin. Chalipin is the usual kinyan. Now, if it's money though, as Rashi here brings, the halacha is money cannot be transferred. You cannot give over money through chalipin. This is the cloud. The Gemara says in Bava Metzia, chalipin is when you pick up a handkerchief, when the seller gives the buyer a handkerchief and you lift it up. So ein matbeya nikne b'chalipin. Right? If you want to give someone a coin, money, that he should be kind of this money, it can't be through an exchange of chalipin. Well, through Mashiach, l'chayre, yeah, the Gemara here is going to discuss. Right now, let's see. Says the Gemara, ve'elamai l'dmei. So what are you answering me? You're saying it has to be money, and that's why chalipin is not an option. But it still doesn't answer why did they not have the option to do the kinyan with Mashiach, just giving over the money and the lekeach taking the money. Ella, what you're going to have to answer is the reason why they told him that you can't do any kinyan other than the kinyan of Agav. You can't do the kinyan with Chalipin or Mashiach because the less say l'makabel matana. The receiver that he wanted to give the gift to was not here. So, and therefore there was no option of Mashiach. So Hanami, the less say l'makabel matana. So we're going to have to say that the receiver of the gift is not here. So therefore you can't do not the kinyan of Mashiach and not the kinyan of Chalipin as well. Again? No, karka is kind of with chalipin, yeah. No. He had to buy a piece of karka for himself, and then in order to be able to use it with a Kinyan Agav to give as a gift. But again, the recipient who he wanted to give the gift to is not here. So in order to do Mashiach, that person has to be here to take it. In order to do the kinyan of chalipin, there has to be someone here to give. The buyer has to give in exchange a handkerchief to make the chalipin. There's actually a big discussion here in Taisvis, Rashi here, Bavarans. Well, so the kinyan of chalipin, it doesn't have to be dafka this person himself. There can't be someone else that could do the chalipin for you. It doesn't have to be the buyer himself that's doing the kinyan of chalipin. Someone else could come and make the chalipin on your behalf. So Rashi says, well, there was nobody else there that was interested in giving you anything in exchange for this kinyan, even a handkerchief. No one wanted to give anything away. There's no one available. Which is mashma, at least according to the way that Rashi is learning here, that when you give the handkerchief or whatever you give in exchange by chalipin, you don't get it back. You give it and the meicher keeps it. Even though by today, by chalipin, you give it and you can just give it right back. It's like a manas lahachzer. That's what Rashi says. Taisus brings one of the Rishonim here that say over here, I think it's Rav Shmaya, that says that by the kinyan of chalipin, only the buyer himself could do the kinyan chalipin. No one else could do it. It has to be in the presence of the buyer himself. If the buyer himself is not here, there's no kinyan of chalipin. But Taisus argues on this. Taisus says ma'asim b'chol yoim, that we see that you kaina even if the kaina is not there. Okay, that's going to get to chalipin. Let's go back into the lashon of the Gemara. So the Gemara asks him this further. So he's saying that the guy is not here. What's the problem? V'niskinu nehalei agav acher. So, but why can't you still do the kinyan of Meshicha? Chalipin, as I mentioned, is a discussion in the Rishonim, but the Gemara is asking regarding the kinyan of Meshicha, why can't someone else be kinder through the kinyan of Meshicha here instead of you? I mean, you can shlichus, he can be kinder for you. Doesn't have to be there himself. So the Gemara says, Loi samcha daitei. This, the one that wanted to give this gift, did not trust anybody to give over the metaltalin to the person that he wanted to give it to, because somebody was afraid, Shamad Valchalahu, he's going to give it to whoever he's going to give it to, he's going to go and eat it for himself. So the Gemara now explains, so what does the Lashon of the Baraisa mean? Ve'elamai ein loy takana. What does the Baraisa mean when it says, they told him, you have no way you can give this metaltalin unless you do the Kinyan of Agav. He really did have another option. Maybe he didn't rely, but he had another option. So the Gemara says, Hachikama. What the Baraisa means to say, Lamai delay samcha daite, because he didn't trust anybody. So then they told him, Ein loy takana. If you don't trust anybody, there's no other way you can give over this gift, Achikno agabi karka, unless it's going to be along with the karka, and then you know for sure the gift is given for that person, and no one else comes in between. Okay, the point is that the Gemara refuted over here. From this Baraisa, you can't bring any raya. It said tefach al tefach, and then it said afterwards that he gave meyat tzayin meyat chavius. It's possible to learn pshat in the Baraisa that it was actual meyat tzayin and meyat chavius, and then that would mean that those metaltalin do not have to be piled up in the karka itself. But it's also possible to learn that it was just money, and that money was actually piled up in the karka itself. So there's no raya from this Baraisa.